It's said that the work carried out here in the mansion at Bletchley Park and in the huts surrounding it helped to shorten the war by at least 2 years. Yet Bletchley Park was an official secret, and until the 1970s only a handful of people knew what had actually gone on here. I'm about to meet two women who trained and worked here during the war, who were both part of the secret army of codebreakers.
After I'd done my basic training with the ATS in Wrexham, I was ordered to go to London, Devonshire House, to be interviewed by an intelligence officer who interviewed me in German. And after, I suppose, probably an hour's conversation, he said, "Right, here's the rail warrant to Bletchley." Well, I had absolutely no idea where Bletchley was or what went on there, but that's how I came to be here, under orders.
You literally had no idea what you were here to do?
Absolutely no idea at all, until the following morning when I was taken into the little office opposite here and given the Official Secrets Act to read and sign. And I had signed to say I wouldn't talk about anything that I saw, read or heard for 30 years.
And you were very young at the time.
I was 18, yes.
18 years old.
Yes.
I remember going to a small room and the petty officer said, 5 words, "We are breaking German codes." She did say that. And that was all we ever knew. I suppose had we known of the ramifications of the work we were doing, it might have been more difficult to keep the secret. There was this phrase, hush, hush. And quite often people would say to all kinds of servicemen, "Where are you going?" And they'd say, "We can't tell you, it's hush, hush." Or "She's in a factory, but the work is hush, hush." And then it was really rather rude if people were pushing you once you'd said hush, hush. So, although my mother was a bit grieved, she said, "You can tell me, I'm your mother." I thought, I tell her it'll be all over Birmingham in 10 minutes. So she had to, she died, never knew what I was doing.
My answer to any question like that was, "Oh, I'm just doing a very boring secretarial job." End of story.
And tell me about the work that you were actually doing here.
I was with a group of us who had to register all the messages as they came in. A very strict registration, date order and call sign order and that sort of thing.
And how many messages were you getting on average a day?
Well, I can't tell you how many I actually handled, but I understood later that they were coming in at the rate of 10,000 a day, roughly.
And Ruth, everyone associates Bletchley Park with Enigma, don't they? The machine that we have behind you. You were brought here for training to learn how to use the bomb machine, the machine that was going to crack it.
Yes, that's right. There were a few training bombs here by the time I arrived in 1944. And although we were trained to use these very complicated bomb machines, we had absolutely no idea of what they were actually doing, which was to replicate Enigma machines and look for the answers. But we didn't know that. We never heard the word Enigma. I never heard the word Enigma. I was in the Wrens for 2.5 years.
You worked very hard, didn't you?
Yes, and even some of the younger people were made quite, I wouldn't say ill, but a bit distressed. And there was one occasion when I wasn't feeling very well, and I was sent off to a rehabilitation centre. But the irony was that as soon as I arrived, I heard a doodlebug coming over. I don't know where I was, because there were no signposts anywhere in the country in those days, so I have no idea. However, it was within doodlebug range, and I had to put on my tin hat and dive under the bed, smartly.
Some of the conditions and the huts that you were working in through the winter, they were pretty basic.
They were very basic indeed, yes. There was some form of central heating, but it was not very good. And of course, the huts had to be sealed at night. The windows had to be sealed because of lights. So there was very poor air circulation, and it was not pleasant.
And Ruth, when you were training here, how do you remember day-to-day life?
Well, you had 2 lives. You had one at the work and one outside the work. Outside the work, it was a good social life.
I found it very friendly. There was a tremendous mixed bag of people. By that I mean from all walks of life. Duties permitting, we could attend concerts and join in choirs. There was a madrigal society, which I enjoyed, and a gramophone group. And every now and again, a very good play would be put on. How on earth they managed to put a play together and work, I don't know, but they did, about every 3 months. We worked hard and we played hard.
And why do you think there was so much going on? Was that to keep your morale up? Because obviously you weren't allowed to say what you were doing.
I mean, when Churchill came to visit Bletchley, I think it was 1941, he asked about the recreational side of the set-up here, and when he heard that we didn't have tennis courts, he ordered them to be put in pronto.
You were here, of course, with some of the best brains in Britain. How much did you know about the people you were working for, working alongside? Alan Turing, for example.
It's only in recent years that they've been recognised as the important people. That's how I found it, anyway.
So at the time, they weren't recognised as for their...
No, they weren't, because they'd disappear into their respective huts, and that was all you knew. And the huts were not named, they were only numbered, so we didn't know what was going on behind the closed doors.
And what do you think now, all these years later, when you realise what those people did?
Well, I think they were absolutely extraordinary, and I'm very, very proud to have been, in a small way, involved in it.
There was a moment, wasn't there, in the 1970s when it was no longer an official secret. It became public. It was public knowledge. You were allowed for the first time to talk about it. What was that like?
30 years after the security blanket was lifted, they published a book called The Enigma Secret. And I said to my husband, well, this is the work I did during the war. And he said, oh, that's very interesting, dear. And what's for tea?
Tell me about these commemorative badges. What does it say on the back of the badge?
It says, we also served, meaning that even though we were not part of the war machine that people knew about, we were here and we did do something.
Well, you're both wonderfully modest, very humble, but it's fascinating talking to you both. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.